This happened when we had the New York Times team following our work for a day last week, and I just want to tell more of that day's story. First, a little bit of context. The situation in the Kharkiv area has been very intense since May 10th, and when things break out, not only does it mobilize a lot of military activity, but everything that comes behind it. The frontline charities, the press, the safer cities that help the evacuating communities, and so on. And when I'm speaking about frontline charities, we're easily talking thousands of organizations, none of which you've ever heard of. There's no UN or Red Cross to be seen in these places. I think the furthest I've seen one of their shiny armored cars is Kiev, and likely quite rare in Kharkiv. So when you see horrible pictures of the war, know that the frontline humanitarian work is largely supported by Ukrainian micro charities you've never heard of. Back to this day in question. Before heading out that morning, my colleague Pavel called some contacts to find out the latest situation in the Vovchansk area. And it turns out that the areas we wanted to evacuate from, Vilcha and Liman, small towns south of Vovchansk, were no-go zones. So we ended up going for our backup plan, evacuating from the towns of Byly and Yurchenkove. We worried that these evacuations might be a bit boring for such a world-class media outlet, but little did we know, all ended up being far from boring. At 10 in the morning, Pavel, Sveta, and myself met up with the New York Times team at a gas station in Kharkiv, planned our day, agreed on process, then geared up in Stary Saltiv and made our way to the Vovchansk area. Byly was a mess for us. They started renaming the roads from Russian to Ukrainian, and none of the three map services we check have fully updated street names, even less so house numbers. So you end up asking any remaining local where Freedom Street 31B is. But we finally made it to our third and last pickup, and just as we finish loading the dog into the van, we start hearing this sound. Imagine a fighter jet slowly approaching, but after 1 second, you realize it's not a fighter jet.
Everyone good? Stay down.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay, guys, let's get the fuck out of the Let's go.
Мы только что там были, по-моему.
We just been there. These are cabs.
It's a cab, a precision-guided bomb, most commonly outfitted with a 500-kilo explosive payload. This is launched from a fighter jet. It's free-falling, often laser-guided. You'll see them referred to as glide bombs quite often. So as you imagine, that was our oh shit moment, and all of us hit the ground. You get on the ground because there's shrapnel or debris from the explosion. Being as close to the ground as possible is safest because of how the explosions blast outwards. Despite these explosions being 600 meters away or so, we still had debris flying overhead, hitting our van, and so on. We checked that everyone was okay, and since that was our last pickup in Byly, we all left to the next town a few kilometers away in Yurchenkove. We stopped at the town center, which is also the local convenience store, and it turns out that one of the ladies there was also the owner of one of the dogs we were evacuating. So we keep talking, and then all of a sudden, you guessed it, that sound of a missile or fighter jet coming in. So here we go again. We quickly head into the store for some cover. And that was the clip at the beginning of this video. This hit was much closer, around 400 meters, if not less. And it's crazy to think that we even evacuated a mother and daughter from this exact area less than 2 weeks ago. 400 meters is, relatively speaking, okay, because once you're in the 100 to 200 meter range, you might start bleeding from your ear, have a serious concussion, or worse, actually get hit. Anyway, at this point, New York Times security made the decision to leave, which was completely right as a media organization. For us in the Nordog team, however, we still had 2 addresses in town to go to, a few good doggos that weren't quite ready for heaven yet. And despite the pressure of the environment, we ultimately trust each other as a team. We're stronger together. So we went to the next address where the German Shepherd was already quite traumatized from all the activity in the area. Sveta, with her magic dog powers, gets the dog in a box, and just then, you guessed it.
Да.
Since we were in this yard, we just hit the ground, and again, you hear it get closer and closer. It's an unnerving feeling as you feel very powerless. In a way, you have no more control over your life. You just have to trust the process. Again, 400 meters away, we check everyone is okay, load the dog, and drive to the next address, which thankfully was a bit further south in this small town. By the time we get there, the older man who is handing over his dog is still shaking. Some people simply can't leave the home they've been in since birth, but they want their pets to have a better life. It's incredibly selfless. And these small rural towns hold nothing of value to the enemy. My best guess is these bombs exist to preemptively gray zone areas in hopes of a ground offensive in the future. Anyway, we finished off with 2 more evacuations in Buaivka and then made our way back to Kharkiv, where the New York Times rejoined us. More importantly, we were able to reunite all the dogs we had in a very full van with their owners. These are people who were forced to evacuate with nothing but the clothes on their back, or other family members who are taking on the animals. So animal by animal, day by day, we over time have had a humanitarian impact that I'm proud of. And while there's an element of fear when going to these places, you just know you have to step up, trust the process, trust the team, and get the job done. It's easy to think that the world is all bad because negative events happen so suddenly and in disproportionately large moves. However, rebuilding is incremental. Instead of one big event, it's thousands of small positive actions that compound, and at some point in the future, completely overshadow the original negative event. And that's how, in my opinion, humanity progresses. For Ukraine, that's every frontline charity like ours. Every donation, no matter how small, it always helps. Even if you decide to skip your coffee shop this morning and donate that money instead, it will absolutely make a difference. Check the link in my bio for various frontline charities I recommend, and let me know in the comments if you want more stories like these. Thank you.